The guards laughed as they dragged Captain Julia Raven Carter through the gates of the prison camp. Snow lashed against the barbed wire. Engines roared in the distance, and every prisoner knew what it meant to arrive here. You didn't leave alive. Most pilots never lasted a week. Julia wasn't supposed to either. But 3 days later, she was flying their own attack helicopter, hunting those same guards through the frozen wilderness they thought would be her grave. Captain Julia Carter was no ordinary soldier. 32 years old, jet-black hair braided tight to regulation, and piercing green eyes that had watched death from above for more than 2,800 flight hours. For 8 years she had flown Apache gunships with surgical precision, earning her the call sign Raven. A predator that strikes from the shadows and leaves nothing but silence. And in that silence, she carried a promise. Her squad would never be forgotten. But to her captors, she was just another American prisoner who would break under interrogation and provide valuable intelligence about military operations. They had no idea they had just caged the most dangerous helicopter pilot in the U.S. Army. A woman who turned aircraft into instruments of death with surgical precision that made enemy forces whisper her name in terror. Julia's path to becoming one of the most feared aviators in military history had begun in the rugged mountains of Colorado, where her father, a retired Army Ranger, had taught her that survival wasn't just about fighting. It was about thinking 3 moves ahead while your enemies celebrated their first victory. Her performance during advanced combat training had been so exceptional that instructors with decades of combat experience admitted they had never seen a pilot who could make an Apache helicopter perform maneuvers that defied engineering limitations. The Afghanistan operation that earned her the Raven call sign had required Julia to penetrate the most heavily defended airspace in the region using terrain masking and low-level flying techniques that pushed Apache capabilities beyond their design specifications. Her mission: eliminate a high-value target who had been responsible for coordinating attacks that killed dozens of American soldiers. The compound was protected by sophisticated air defense systems and experienced fighters who had survived previous American airstrikes. Julia's approach had been so unexpected and devastating that enemy survivors described her attack as if death itself had descended from the sky. She had used the mountainous terrain to mask her approach, striking with precision that eliminated 12 confirmed targets in under 4 minutes before disappearing into the valleys like a ghost that had never existed. The psychological impact of her attack had been so severe that enemy forces abandoned the entire region rather than risk facing the Raven again. Over 8 years of combat operations, Julia had flown 387 combat missions and accumulated experience in close air support, tactical transport, and precision attack operations that made her one of the most versatile helicopter pilots in military history. Her innovations in low-level flying techniques and weapons delivery had been studied by other aviators and incorporated into training protocols that saved countless American lives. Julia's approach to helicopter combat emphasized understanding the engineering principles that governed aircraft performance, allowing her to extract maximum capability from her aircraft while adapting to tactical situations that challenged conventional procedures. Her mechanical engineering background from MIT gave her insights that purely operational pilots often lacked. She understood how rotorcraft systems operated under extreme stress and could modify her flying techniques to compensate for battle damage or equipment failures that would force other pilots to abort their missions. Julia's combat record included operations in some of the most contested airspace in the world, where enemy surface-to-air missiles and advanced fighter aircraft created environments that required split-second decision-making and perfect execution of defensive maneuvers that existed only in theoretical training scenarios. Her survival rate had been 100% with 0 aircraft losses during missions under her command. Enemy intelligence reports described her as the American pilot who makes helicopters disappear and reappear behind our defenses like supernatural predators. But Julia's legendary reputation would be tested in ways she had never imagined when her Apache helicopter was shot down during a reconnaissance mission deep in enemy territory controlled by forces that specialized in capturing American military personnel alive. The mission that led to her capture had been planned as routine intelligence gathering along enemy supply routes through the frozen mountains of Eastern Europe. But intelligence reports had failed to identify the sophisticated air defense network that enemy forces had recently installed using advanced Russian technology. Julia's helicopter had been conducting low-level surveillance when multiple missile launches had overwhelmed her defensive countermeasures despite her exceptional piloting skills and evasive maneuvers. The surface-to-air missile system that engaged Julia's Apache had been recently deployed using intelligence gathered from studying previous American helicopter operations. Enemy forces had analyzed American helicopter tactics and positioned their defenses specifically to counter low-level reconnaissance flights that relied on terrain masking for protection. Their trap had been designed to capture rather than destroy, using guided missiles that could disable aircraft systems without killing the crew. Lieutenant Mason Brooks, Julia's co-pilot and weapons systems operator, had been killed during the missile attack when shrapnel from the initial strike had penetrated the cockpit. His death had left Julia to attempt a controlled crash landing while wounded and under continuous enemy fire from ground forces who had been positioned to capture any surviving crew members. Julia's emergency landing had been executed using auto-rotation techniques that required perfect timing and exceptional flying skills that she had mastered through years of training in scenarios that most pilots never survive. Despite taking shrapnel wounds from the missile explosion and losing her co-pilot, she had managed to bring her damaged Apache down in a snow-covered clearing that provided minimal protection from enemy ground forces converging on her position. The crash site had been quickly surrounded by enemy soldiers who understood the intelligence value of capturing an American helicopter pilot alive, rather than simply eliminating another enemy combatant. Julia's survival gear and emergency protocols had provided limited defensive capabilities, but she was outnumbered and wounded in hostile territory with no immediate prospect of rescue. Her training had prepared her for exactly this situation. But the reality of captivity would test her resolve in ways that no simulation could replicate. Commander Travis Cole was the officer responsible for the prison camp where Julia and other captured Americans were held. At 47 years old, with 18 years of experience in psychological interrogation and prisoner management, he operated the facility with brutal efficiency designed to break the will of captured soldiers and extract valuable military intelligence that could be used against American forces operating in the region. Cole had built his reputation on successfully interrogating captured American pilots and special operations personnel, using techniques that combined physical deprivation with psychological pressure, designed to exploit the specific vulnerabilities that elite soldiers might possess. His methods had been developed through extensive study of American military training and psychological profiles that identified the pressure points most likely to force prisoners to reveal classified information. The prison camp was located deep in snow-covered mountains, surrounded by natural barriers that made escape extremely difficult, and conventional rescue operations nearly impossible due to the harsh weather conditions and remote location. The facility had been designed to hold high-value prisoners who possessed intelligence that could significantly impact ongoing military operations throughout the theater. The compound had been constructed using defensive principles that accounted for potential American rescue attempts, including sophisticated early warning systems, concealed defensive positions, and communication networks that could coordinate rapid response to any external threats. The location had been chosen specifically because helicopter operations were extremely hazardous due to unpredictable weather patterns and mountainous terrain that limited approach routes. "Just another captured pilot," Cole had said dismissively when Julia was brought to his compound unconscious and bleeding from her crash injuries. "She will provide useful information about American helicopter operations, then serve as a bargaining chip for prisoner exchanges when her intelligence value has been exhausted. Julia's initial interrogation had focused on her knowledge of Apache helicopter systems, tactical procedures, and base security measures that could be exploited in future operations against American forces. Cole's techniques were designed to gradually break down psychological resistance while gathering intelligence that could be used to develop countermeasures against American helicopter tactics. But Julia had undergone extensive survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training that prepared her for exactly this type of situation. Her responses to interrogation had been limited to name, rank, and serial number, while she carefully observed the camp's security procedures and defensive weaknesses that might be exploited during an escape attempt. During her 3 days in captivity, Julia had been conducting covert reconnaissance of the prison facility, while Cole's guards assumed she was simply recovering from the trauma of being shot down and captured. Every interaction with guards provided information about their routines, equipment, and the overall security structure of the compound that she analyzed using her tactical training and engineering background. Her mechanical engineering education gave her insights into the camp's infrastructure that other prisoners couldn't recognize. Julia understood how power systems, communication equipment, and defensive installations operated, providing her with knowledge that could be exploited during an escape attempt if the opportunity presented itself. More importantly, Julia's helicopter pilot training had taught her to think tactically about terrain, defensive positions, and the capabilities of various military aircraft. She could hear helicopter patrols conducting security sweeps around the prison camp, and her experience allowed her to identify aircraft types, flight patterns, and operational procedures with precision that revealed exploitable weaknesses. Julia's analysis of enemy helicopter operations revealed that they were using modified Mi-24 Hind attack helicopters with predictable patrol schedules and minimal security awareness. Their pilots followed established flight routes and landing procedures that prioritized efficiency over defensive precautions, creating opportunities that could be exploited by someone with advanced tactical knowledge and the skills to turn enemy aircraft into weapons against their own forces. The prison compound security had been designed to prevent escape attempts by infantry personnel and special operations soldiers. But the planners hadn't considered the possibility that a captured helicopter pilot might understand how to transform enemy aircraft into instruments of devastating counterattack against their own positions. On the morning of her 4th day in captivity, Julia learned from other prisoners that a coordinated escape attempt was being planned by a group of captured Special Forces soldiers who had been imprisoned for several weeks. The plan involved overpowering guards during a shift change and attempting to reach friendly territory through the treacherous mountain wilderness surrounding the camp. Sergeant First Class Daniel Reed was the senior American prisoner who had been organizing escape preparations since his capture 4 weeks earlier. His Special Forces training had provided him with survival skills and tactical knowledge that made him the natural leader among the captured soldiers who looked to him for guidance and hope in their desperate situation. Reed's escape plan had been developed using conventional special operations doctrine that emphasized stealth, evasion, and survival techniques designed for personnel operating behind enemy lines in hostile territory. His approach was tactically sound, but didn't account for the helicopter assets that enemy forces would deploy to hunt escaped prisoners through terrain that favored airborne pursuit over ground evasion. Captain Carter, Reed had whispered during a brief opportunity for communication when guards were distracted. "We're moving tonight during the guard shift change. The forest is thick enough to provide concealment from ground pursuit, but enemy patrols will be hunting us with helicopters and tracking technology that gives them significant advantages." Julia had analyzed the tactical situation and understood that conventional escape on foot would likely fail against enemy forces who controlled the terrain and possessed air support capabilities that could track and eliminate escaped prisoners before they reached friendly territory. Her helicopter pilot experience provided insights that infantry training couldn't address adequately. "Sergeant, enemy helicopters will have thermal imaging and can track us from above, even in thick forest cover and snow conditions," Julia explained quietly. "Running on foot gives us maybe 6 hours before they corner us in terrain of their choosing with overwhelming firepower superiority." Reed looked at the pilot, recognizing that she was suggesting conventional escape tactics might be insufficient against the technological advantages their enemies possessed. "Captain, what are you thinking? Do you have an alternative approach that might give us better odds of successful extraction?" Julia had been observing enemy helicopter operations for 3 days, noting flight patterns, aircraft types, and security procedures that revealed critical weaknesses she could exploit using her specialized knowledge and experience. "I'm thinking we need to level the playing field, Sergeant. Instead of running from their helicopters, what if we took one and used it against them?" The concept of capturing an enemy helicopter during a prison break was so unconventional that Reed initially assumed Julia was proposing something that existed only in theoretical scenarios. But her detailed knowledge of helicopter operations and tactical capabilities convinced him that such an approach might represent their only chance for successful escape and survival. "Captain, even if we could capture a helicopter, do you have the technical knowledge to operate enemy aircraft that uses different systems and control layouts than American equipment?" Reed asked, recognizing that helicopter piloting required specialized skills that couldn't be improvised. Julia's engineering background and extensive flight experience had taught her that helicopters operated on similar principles regardless of their country of origin or specific design characteristics. While control layouts and specific systems might differ significantly, the fundamental principles of rotary wing flight remained universal across all aircraft types. "Sergeant, I've been studying their patrol patterns for 3 days. They use Mi-24 Hind attack helicopters with predictable flight routes and minimal security awareness during landing procedures," Julia explained. "If we can get to one during their refueling stop, I can fly it out of here and provide us with the firepower advantage we need to eliminate this facility permanently." The escape plan that Julia and Reed developed was unlike anything attempted in conventional prisoner of war scenarios throughout military history. Instead of simply fleeing the camp and hoping to evade pursuit, they would conduct a tactical operation designed to capture enemy aircraft and use it to extract all American prisoners while neutralizing the facility's capability to hold future captives. Their plan required precise timing, coordinated action, and the ability to adapt to rapidly changing tactical circumstances that would test their training and resolve under extreme pressure. Julia's helicopter expertise would be combined with Reed's special operations training to create an approach that enemy forces wouldn't anticipate or be able to counter effectively. That evening, as guard shifts changed and security attention was focused on routine procedures rather than potential threats from within, Julia and Reed led 14 other American prisoners in a coordinated assault on the prison camp's perimeter defenses. Their objective wasn't immediate escape through the wilderness. It was positioning themselves to intercept the enemy helicopter that conducted regular evening patrol flights around the facility. The timing had to be absolutely perfect. Julia's analysis of enemy flight patterns indicated that patrol helicopters landed at a designated area near the camp to refuel and coordinate with ground forces before conducting nighttime security sweeps. This provided a brief window when the aircraft would be vulnerable to ground assault by prisoners who understood helicopter operations and could exploit the crew's complacency. As the escape began, camp alarms activated and enemy forces responded according to standard security protocols that had been designed to contain conventional prison breaks. But Julia had anticipated their reactions, using her understanding of tactical procedures to predict how enemy commanders would deploy their forces to contain what appeared to be a desperate escape attempt. All prisoners are attempting to escape through the eastern perimeter. came the radio transmission that Julia and Reed intercepted using captured communication equipment. Deploy helicopter support immediately to track fleeing Americans and coordinate with ground pursuit teams for rapid recapture operations. The enemy's tactical response was exactly what Julia had predicted with mathematical precision. They were treating the situation as a conventional prison break, deploying aircraft to hunt fleeing prisoners rather than defending against the possibility that their own helicopter might become a target for capture and tactical exploitation. 20 minutes after the escape began, Julia heard the distinctive sound of an approaching Mi-24 Hind attack helicopter conducting tactical reconnaissance of the area, where enemy forces expected to find fleeing American prisoners scattered and vulnerable in the frozen wilderness. But instead of fleeing, Julia and Reed were positioning their team to intercept the aircraft during its planned refueling stop. Raven, this is Reed. Enemy helicopter approaching from the northwest, approximately 2 minutes to landing zone. Reed whispered through their improvised communication system. All teams are in position and ready for your signal to begin the assault on the aircraft. Julia checked the captured weapons and equipment that their team had acquired during the initial assault on camp defenses, ensuring that everything was ready for the most critical phase of their operation. Copy, Reed. Remember, we need to take the helicopter intact with no damage to flight systems, or we're all walking home through enemy territory in sub-zero conditions. The Mi-24 Hind landed at the designated refueling area with normal security procedures, its crew expecting to coordinate with ground forces about pursuing escaped prisoners rather than defending against an assault on their own aircraft by the same prisoners they had been sent to hunt through the mountainous terrain. The pilot and co-pilot were conducting post-flight checks and coordination with ground commanders when Julia's team emerged from concealed positions surrounding the landing zone with tactical precision that demonstrated their military training and desperate determination to escape captivity. "Nobody moves!" Reed shouted in the enemy language, while Julia approached the helicopter with technical knowledge that allowed her to quickly assess its condition and operational status. The enemy aircrew's shock at being ambushed by the same prisoners they had been sent to hunt provided Julia with a tactical advantage she needed to secure the aircraft without damage to critical flight systems. Her helicopter pilot experience allowed her to understand the aircraft's capabilities and limitations at a glance, recognizing that this particular Mi-24 Hind was fully operational and equipped with weapon systems that could be turned against their former captors with devastating effectiveness. Reed, this bird is fully fueled and armed with rockets and machine guns. All systems appear operational and ready for immediate deployment, Julia reported while familiarizing herself with the cockpit layout. "I can fly this thing out of here and use it against the camp, but we need to move fast before enemy ground forces realize what happened and coordinate a response." Julia's rapid assessment of the capture helicopter revealed that while the control layout was different from American aircraft, the fundamental flight principles were identical to her Apache training. Her engineering background allowed her to quickly understand the foreign control systems and navigation equipment with the same precision that had made her legendary in American helicopters. "All prisoners board immediately," Julia commanded as she began familiarizing herself with the Hind's cockpit layout and control systems. "This helicopter can carry all of us, but we have maybe 5 minutes before enemy forces coordinate a response and deploy additional aircraft to hunt us down." As American prisoners loaded into the capture helicopter, Julia began startup procedures, using her understanding of rotary wing aircraft to adapt her Apache training to enemy equipment. The Russian design controls were different, but helicopter flight physics remained constant regardless of aircraft nationality or specific design characteristics. "Raven, enemy forces are mobilizing ground units and requesting additional air support," Reed reported while monitoring captured radio communications. "They don't realize yet that we've taken their helicopter, but that advantage won't last long once we begin our attack." Julia engaged the Hind's weapon systems and began her takeoff sequence using terrain masking and low-level flight techniques to avoid detection by enemy radar systems while positioning for her assault. Her plan wasn't simply to escape and evade pursuit. She intended to use the captured helicopter to conduct tactical strikes against the prison camp that had held them captive. "Reed, I'm going to make sure this facility can't hold any more American prisoners," Julia announced as she maneuvered the Hind into attack position. "Enemy forces used their helicopter against us. Now we're going to use it against them with interest." The attack on Commander Cole's prison camp was conducted using tactics that Julia had learned during 8 years of Apache operations, but executed with an enemy helicopter that the camp's defenses weren't designed to counter. The psychological impact of seeing their own aircraft attacking their positions was devastating to enemy morale and tactical coordination. Julia's precision strikes eliminated guard towers, communication equipment, and defensive positions while avoiding areas where remaining prisoners might be held. Her helicopter pilot expertise allowed her to deliver devastating firepower with surgical accuracy that demonstrated complete mastery of the captured aircraft and turned their own weapons against them. "This is impossible," came Cole's panicked radio transmission as he watched his facility being systematically destroyed. "Our own helicopter is attacking us. How are escaped prisoners flying our aircraft with such precision and tactical effectiveness?" Julia's response was broadcast on the same frequency, her voice calm and professional despite the chaos she was creating. "Commander Cole, this is Captain Julia Carter, United States Army. You captured a helicopter pilot, and now you're learning why that was a very bad tactical decision. The systematic destruction of the prison camp took less than 8 minutes, during which Julia eliminated the facility's capability to hold prisoners while ensuring that enemy forces understood the consequences of capturing American aviators. Her tactical strikes were so precise that enemy personnel who survived would forever associate the sound of helicopters with devastating defeat and tactical humiliation. After neutralizing the prison camp, Julia flew the captured helicopter toward friendly territory using navigation techniques that combined her knowledge of the regional terrain with GPS coordinates that she calculated using the aircraft systems. The flight to safety required maintaining low altitude to avoid enemy radar, while navigating through mountainous terrain that challenged even her exceptional piloting skills. "Friendly forces. This is Captain Julia Carter flying captured enemy helicopter with 15 rescued American prisoners. Request immediate clearance and safe passage to nearest American base," Julia transmitted as they approached friendly airspace. The radio response reflected the amazement of American controllers who were processing an unprecedented situation that challenged their understanding of conventional escape and evasion procedures. "Captain Carter, confirm you are flying an enemy helicopter with rescued prisoners. Please verify your identity and current status." "Confirmed, Control. We captured enemy aircraft during prison break and eliminated the facility that was holding us. All American prisoners are safe and en route to friendly territory in captured Mi-24 Hind helicopter," Julia replied with professional calm that masked the extraordinary nature of their escape. Julia's successful escape and subsequent destruction of the enemy prison camp became legendary within military aviation communities worldwide. Her tactical use of a captured helicopter to conduct precision strikes against her former captors demonstrated capabilities that exceeded conventional pilot training and proved that innovative thinking could overcome seemingly impossible situations when combined with exceptional skill and determination. 6 months later, Captain Julia Raven Carter was promoted to Major and awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for her role in leading the prison break and eliminating enemy capabilities using captured aircraft against their own forces. But more importantly, her actions had demonstrated that American military training prepared soldiers to adapt and overcome even when conventional resources were unavailable and the odds seemed insurmountable. Commander Cole's facility was never rebuilt, and intelligence reports indicated that enemy forces became significantly more cautious about capturing American helicopter pilots after learning about Julia's escape and subsequent attack using their own aircraft against them with devastating tactical effectiveness. Today, Lieutenant Colonel Julia Raven Carter trains military aviators in survival, evasion, resistance, and escape techniques that emphasize adaptive thinking and the importance of understanding that any aircraft can become a weapon in the hands of a properly trained pilot with the determination to never surrender. Her students learn that the most dangerous assumption enemy forces can make is believing that captured pilots are helpless prisoners rather than highly trained warriors who will use any available resources to continue fighting and protect their fellow soldiers. The Raven has become synonymous with the principle that true warriors never stop being dangerous, even in captivity. Have you ever been underestimated by people who thought they had you completely under their control, only to prove that your capabilities extended far beyond their imagination? Julia's story reminds us that sometimes the most devastating counterattacks come from those who were dismissed as defeated and broken. The guards who laughed and called her just another captured pilot learned that some prisoners are more dangerous in captivity than they ever were in freedom, especially when they get their hands on the very weapons that were supposed to be used against them. If you believe that true warriors can turn any situation to their advantage, share this story and subscribe to Quiet Tales Studio. Because somewhere, someone is being underestimated by their enemies, not knowing that their greatest victory might come from using their captors' own strength against them. Julia Carter didn't just escape from enemy captivity. She transformed their helicopter into an instrument of their own destruction, proving that the most dangerous place for your enemies is believing they have you exactly where they want you. Thanks for watching Quiet Tales Studio. If you like this video, subscribe to see more incredible stories of courage, determination, and the warriors who never surrender, no matter the odds.